He then moves to what he calls biography as ethics. And here, this is a rather short section. Basically, he says that we all come to the task of Christian ethics from a unique experience of the world based on our social location and life history, right? So where we are in the world, our history, and that sort of thing. And he says, following in the footsteps of the incarnate Christ, we are moral agents in a historical drama richly contoured with local conditions, contingent events, particular circumstances, and individual actions. And so we have to work within our social location and our life history with regard to our ethical perspective, I think is what he's trying to get at here.
Well, then he moves on then again to organizing, solidarity, and prayer, the practices of prophetic ethics. So prophetic ethics transforms people to transform the world. Prophetic ethics' primary source is Holy Scripture, placing priority on the perspective of the poor. Okay, I don't know why we wouldn't put our perspective on Jesus, but all right, the poor. Inspired by Micah's challenge to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God, Micah 6:8. Prophetic ethics has three primary practices: faith-rooted organization, or organizing, which is the justice part, embodied solidarity, the mercy, and daily prayer, walk humbly with your God. So justice, mercy, and walking humbly with your God are the three kind of aspects there. Organizing, solidarity, and prayer. Faith-rooted organizing is gathering people to create systematic change in a way that is completely shaped by our faith. So we want to organize people to go out and do the thing in the world, and there it's shaped by our kind of shared faith, workings out in the Christian faith, done by prayer, and he says primarily led by Scripture.
Right. And so he's going to come back to this faith-rooted organization near the end here. Mm-hmm. What he's going to focus on first is the other two, the justice and the mercy, or what he calls love portion of this triad that he's listed out of Micah here. And so so first he looks at love and justice, the moral norms of prophetic ethics. And he says justice and righteousness are two pillars of the prophetic imperative in Hebrew scripture. When we see the word righteousness in the Bible, he tells us, we often think of private morality. And he says, while biblical righteousness is personal, it is also social, right? And then he quotes Tim Keller here, the late Tim Keller. Keller writes, when these two words, and he gives us the Hebrew words for righteousness and justice. And he says, when these two words are tied together as they are over 36 times, Keller tells us, the English expression Keller believes that best conveys the meaning is social justice. So righteousness and justice, when these two words are put together, Keller explains, is best conveyed as social justice. And so there it is, right there, right? And
sure.
Of course, Tim Keller agrees.
Right. As someone who's writing from a city perspective, and again, the perspective is for the nation of Israel. So I'm just saying there's that part. All right. Well, what about Jesus? We have to talk about Jesus. No one else in our chapters have really focused on Jesus a whole ton. And so let's see what he's going to do here. Well,
and we have to, as you mentioned earlier before we came on, we have to give him his props because he does use a lot of scripture in this chapter.
It's throughout this chapter. I was so impressed to see the blue highlights in my Logos reader for it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's going to call Jesus the revolutionary prophet. Okay, great. Revolution. Again, Jesus of Nazareth was a revolutionary prophet, writes Aubrey Hendricks Jr. Growing up impoverished Nazareth in a country colonized by the Romans, Jesus compassionately connected with the poor. Only the poor, I guess. But all right. Invoking Isaiah's prophecy of the year of the Lord's favor from Isaiah 58, 61, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, etc., Jesus' Nazareth manifesto declares the start of the Sabbath Jubilee year. That's Luke 4, 21. And after reading Isaiah, Jesus proclaimed that Jubilee justice was fulfilled in their midst, inaugurating a season of freedom and economic redistribution for all of God's children.
Right. And of
Mind the
course,
fact that he stopped at a very particular portion for exactly his messiahship there.
yeah, yeah. And of course, this is Jesus famously after his coming, going into the temple, he reads Isaiah and tells the people that today this is fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
That's what he's getting at here, that particular passage in the gospel, Luke chapter 4.